Okay, so thank you for joining me. Welcome to the video. This is going to be a video basically on a presentation that I created with some information based on the events that have taken place and has affected my children and I, and the unlawful activities of the government officials involved, and how they're defrauding the government and um, what they've done to us. And trust me when I tell you, this is not something new. This is something that's been going on for a very long time, and they've gotten so comfortable that they really fucked themselves this time. So I'm sharing with you here a list of, this is, okay, so it's unlawful to defraud the government. Of course, there's different acts here. There's treason, defrauding the government and justice, domestic terrorism, which is essentially terrorism, but by our forces upon us. Organized crime or pre-militia, trafficking women, children, and drugs, kidnapping malicious by DCF process, uh, deprivation of rights under the color of law, illegal search and seizure, neglect of fiduciary duty, licensing and regulatory board violations, unlawful forced entry and eviction, fake, false, and fabricated evictions, deceptive practices, robbery, conspiracy to commit crimes, rape, peonage, forced servitude, coercion, setting up crimes and planting items on people to get them wrapped up into the court system, fake case numbers, code case numbers, if you will, trafficking of women, forced sex trafficking of women, false reporting and misconduct, fabricating and falsifying documents, tampering with evidence, fabricating evidence, repeated unlawful detainment, defamation and slander, hate crimes and discrimination on account of race, sex, etc. First degree attempted murder and murder has happened, although it did not happen to us, thankfully. Blackballing or blacklisting, property damage, aggravated battery, permanent disfigurement, child endangerment and sexual abuse, omissions of faulty practices, fake criminal cases. I think I mentioned that. Fake court cases, fake rulings, and denied restitution, and victims' benefits from the victims' advocates of the state attorney's office under Mr. Britt. Fake documentation and denied restraining orders, fake court proceedings, code case numbers, wireless network, computer hacking, cryptography, credit card fraud and theft, monopoly, antitrust violations, public trust violations, falsifying tests, forced evaluations, maltreatment, and public trust violations, neglected prosecution of perps, abuse of authority, conflict of interest, and malicious, willful, intentional harm. Malicious, willful, intentional harm, emotional, physical, psychological, sexual, involving children, developmental trauma. It's called the tort of outrage, intentional infliction of emotional distress. It is the tort called IIED, also known as the tort of outrage, of the extreme, severe, and outrageous nature. That's a working list. I do have way more to add to that, but I've done so many documents and so many presentations that the information is all here somewhere, even if it's not in this specific presentation. Continuing here, my 14th Amendment constitutionally protected rights were violated multiple times, which is punishable by up to and including life in prison, and I think it's a $10,000 to $100,000 fine per incident. My First Amendment rights were violated. My Fourth Amendment rights were violated. My Second Amendment rights were violated. My 13th Amendment rights were violated. My civil rights have been violated, and my Eighth Amendment right has been violated. Here's some evidentiary factors and contemporaneous events. Okay, so Title 18, Section 286 covers the conspiracy to defraud the government with respect to claims. It states that anyone who enters into an agreement to defraud the government by obtaining or aiding in obtaining a false claim can be fined or imprisoned up to 10 years. for one count. The Florida Department of Children and Family officials and the Inspector General took unlawful action and or neglected to take corrective action when notified. Only more retaliation is what happened. Florida Statute 817. This chapter of the Florida statutes covers fraud by deception, including organized fraud, obtaining property by false personation, and making false statements to obtain property or credit. That relates to the wrongful eviction that was taken against me without a judge's signature. Just days after I filed a very clear document stating that there was too much corruption going on and that I knew what my rights are, and they took action against me in retaliation just a week later. This is the Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under the color of law. Makes it a crime to deprive someone of their rights, privileges, or immunities under the color of law, which means acting in position. This includes acts done by officials who are acting beyond their lawful authority, or who are pretending to act within their authority, as in my case with Mr. Britt. The punishment for violating this law can include a fine up to a year in prison or both. The punishment can be more severe if the violations resulted in bodily injury, the use of dangerous weapons, or death. And the Florida Statutes, Chapter 760, Section 51, allows the Florida Attorney General to take civil or administrative action against those who violate constitutional rights. The Attorney General can act on behalf of the injured person or on behalf of the state, which they haven't failed to do so. I've notified them, and I have a paper trail that that's been done, and they have not contacted me. In fact, whenever I followed up repeatedly, I was told that they can't do anything about it. Here is this the federal code applies to the following violations of constitutionally protected rights, constitutional and civil rights violations. There's only a few here of very many rights violations that were intentional. The civil rights, the First Amendment, the 14th Amendment, as I stated before, 13th, 8th, 4th, 2nd, and so on. Important to note here are the officials were repeatedly made aware of these illegal and criminal acts being committed against the Bourgaults to no avail, against my children and I to no avail. More retaliation and unlawful force were enacted upon us following notifications of crimes and parties involved. Let's see. Are you a part of the problem or a part of the solution? This was my question to them. The following parties were directly involved, or neglected to take corrective action after being notified of the unlawful activities and multiple intentional crimes committed against my children and I, thereby willfully taking criminal actions against us themselves. Charles Britt, Assistant State Attorney of Monroe County, which I've recently found out he's no longer with us, they said, which begs the question, what happened to Mr. Britt? They're acting awful funny about it, and suddenly they're looking to prosecute the fucking bastard that did this to my face, finally, after a year and a half. But they're looking to make me come to Monroe County to make it happen. Bonnie Helms, Chief Judge. Mark Wilson, County Judge. Department of Children and Families, Teresa Glover, the Regional Supervisor for Children and Families. Jean Curtis, a Child Protective Investigator. Kathy Vostry, also a Child Protective Investigator. The Wesley House is a DCF affiliate. Amy Eichen and Stephanie Hassel were the main characters there. Both of them are involved. All of these people are involved. The Guidance Care Center, Megan, I don't know her last name, but she'll turn up. And her supervisor, she was a blonde. The Key West Sheriff's Department and the Key West Police Department, multiple officers in each one. One of them currently in jail in Monroe County at this moment for multiple counts, some 40 odd counts and counting. A sheriff's officer has been arrested and she's being detained for a $700,000 bond on roughly 40 charges, and they just keep adding up. Civilians, multiple, some with fake cases themselves. Yumika Ferguson of the Department of Children and Families affiliate, was it Citrus House or something like that? Citrus, something or another. The Guardian Ad Litem program, Leslie Calero, and a couple of other ladies whose names I don't remember off the top of my head. But they were definitely made aware and ignored the entire situation, thereby taking part in the illegal actions themselves. That's the way it works in law. If you have the fiduciary duty to do something about it and you didn't, and something bad happens, sorry, wah, 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 your ass is on the line. Chopping block. Joseph Albury, court-appointed attorney, illegally appointed, and using the dependency court's cases as a sales funnel for his adoption firm, thereby indicating an irrefutable claim of child trafficking. Taken part in by the chief judge, Bonnie Helms herself, and all of these other bastards too. Clerk's office and victims advocate team, judicial assistant to Bonnie Helms named Raquel Galvin, Mark Wilson and his judicial assistant, Christina Norman, Angelica Harden Ivanovsky, a lawyer in the military with military affiliations, and she even lives on the base in Key West. Susan Mary, Lisette Reed, a magistrate in the federal courts, Southern District. Michael Moore, federal judge, Southern District Courts of Florida. Jared Sonenclair, a lawyer who committed legal malpractice when notifying Mr. Britt on 6/14/23 that I intended to file a lawsuit against the county and or the city, and that's whenever Mr. Britt called to bribe me and threaten my son. Colleen Reed, a lawyer in Key West. Jennifer Ketchum, that's the one that's on a $700,000 bond. She's a sheriff's officer. Can anyone say Guantanamo Bay? These parties were directly involved, indirectly involved, or neglected to take corrective action after being notified of the unlawful activities and multiple intentional crimes, thereby willfully taking criminal actions against us themselves. This is a working list, and let me tell you, there's at least 80 names to go. Okay, there's 80 names total, 80 to 100, and there's only 20, 30 here. Let's see. Organized crime, pre-militia, trafficking, peonage, murder, criminal acts of domestic terror, maritime law practices on land, military forces against citizens, civilians, and children. Domestic terrorism is the committing of terrorist acts in the perpetrator's own country against their fellow citizens. And Title 18, Section 2381 of the Federal United States Code states that treason is the act of levying war against the United States or its people, or aiding and comforting its enemies, which would be the defrauding of the government. The penalty for treason is death. Those convicted of treason also forfeit the right to hold public office in the United States. Imagine that. Some people think Mr. Britt quit, but I think he was fired. Either way, he's going to prison, Guantanamo Bay, that is. Sovereign immunity clause and how it applies to the Bourgault case. The Southern District Courts of Florida were unlawfully influenced by the government perp, aka Charles Britt. Of course, there's a paper trail on this because it's only defamation if you have proof, if you don't have proof. And I do have the proof, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. Resulting in my case being dismissed without consideration, aka biased rulings, illegal. Oh, and it's a public trust violation as well. Yet another occurrence of special treatment from me. But why? What makes me so special? Because I am credible witness, I have evidence, and I ain't going to keep my fucking mouth shut and can't be controlled, okay? 3 strikes and you're out. That's why they came after me. Foreign immunity clause in lawsuits. There's a Google link here. And it shares a little bit about, let's see what it says here. The Florida Sovereign Immunity Clause prevents individuals from suing the state and its agencies for civil damages unless the state consents to certain condition or certain conditions are met. And for my case, what applies here is the tort claims. The state and its agencies can be sued for torts if the government employee's negligence would make a private person liable. And it does. Oh, he says here notices must send a notice. Claimants must send a notice to the government within 3 years of the claim date. That might be important for someone. Take a note of that. Article X, the Section 13 of the Florida Constitution allows the legislator to waive this immunity. Okay, let's go back over here to that one. So essentially, I'm just explaining that to you here. The implications of waiver of immunity are here. And here it says Florida's sovereign immunity clause prevents individuals from suing the state and its agencies for civil damages unless the state consents. The purpose, the exceptions, the limitations, yada, yada, yada. And there's ways to get around all those, recovery limits and whatnot. The Florida statute 76828, number 1, allows for suits in tort against the state and its agencies and subdivisions for damages resulting from the negligence of government employees acting in the scope of employment. This liability exists only where a private person would be liable for the same conduct, which tells you right there that they were full of shit, okay, whenever they dropped my court case on the grounds of sovereign immunity, and they knew it. And they ignored over 1,000 pages of documents that I submitted on that case. Granted, sovereign immunity, if granted, renders the evidence. No, wait a minute. Let's see. Oh, this isn't supposed to be here. Depending on what other evidence the prosecution has and when he was. Okay, so yeah, that's not supposed to be there. I'll take that out later. Change it to whatever I meant to put in there. Motion to suppress filed by the government perp admits law enforcement misconduct. The null prosecchi to suppress all charges in fake criminal case against me, issued as a bribe with a threat upon my son, Kyle. A motion to suppress in Florida is a written request to a judge to exclude evidence from a trial because it was obtained illegally. A criminal defense attorney files the motion, where in this case, Mr. Britt, the prosecutor, filed it and didn't need to wait for a hearing. They believe the evidence was unlawfully obtained through search and seizure or other misconduct. A motion to suppress can be based on a number of grounds, including an illegal stop, an unlawful seizure, a warrantless search or seizure upon a person, home, or vehicle. One home, one vehicle, I have 2 counts, and failure to read a suspect their Miranda rights. If the judge grants the motion, the evidence is not admissible in court. That's what I was referring to up here in this. It says granted, if the motion is granted, it renders the evidence not admissible. Depending on what other evidence the prosecution has available, this may result in the case being dropped. Or a more favorable plea agreement if they do have other evidence, which they clearly didn't because it was all fabricated. To file a motion to suppress, the attorney must submit the motion and supporting documents to the clerk of court. The court then should schedule a hearing in the motion. The government perp didn't have a hearing because he has the authority, though he repeatedly stated on multiple occasions. Okay, Title 11 of the United States Code, Section 106, allows the court to bind governmental units and if they assert sovereign immunity. Under the grounds of Administrative Procedure Act, the statute waives federal sovereign immunity. Federal Tort Claims Act, this statute also waives federal sovereign immunity, and the Tucker Act, the statute waives federal sovereign immunity. Qualified sovereign immunity. There's 2 types of immunity. Sovereign immunity. There are 2 types of sovereign immunity, qualified and absolute. Qualified immunity shields a government official from liability if their activities are within the scope of their office in objective good faith and don't violate a clearly established statutory or constitutional a statutory or constitutional right for which a reasonable person would be aware. Qualified immunity is a judicially created doctrine and shields the government officials from personal liability for violating the constitutional right. For example, to be free from excessive police force as long as the officials did not violate clearly established law. On the other hand, absolute immunity confers sovereign immunity on the government officials, making them completely immune from criminal prosecution and civil suits for damages, as long as officials are acting within their scope of their duties. Essentially, this immunity is a complete bar to a lawsuit with no exceptions, and generally applies to judges, prosecutors, jurors, legislators, and the highest executive officials of the governments. However, they never even looked at my paperwork on the court case that I filed in the federal courts to see that clearly I've provided evidence in the 1,000 pages or more that I submitted, and evidence and testimony that they in fact were not falling under the clause of sovereign immunity because they were not working within the scope of their practice and with good faith. So let's clarify. Here's just a quick little blurb I put together for Mr. Britt. Mr. Britt and Judge Wilson denied me my rights to obtain and review evidence in a criminal case. Wilson even spoke of conspiracy in the bench, and Britt winked at me in the courtroom that day and told me that I could come to his office and view the evidence. Britt winked his eye at me and offered to let me view the evidence, implicitly broke the rules by making a special exception for me once again. But why? Britt attempted to coerce me into working for him, indicating a little side mission of my own. I declined, standing firm that I didn't want to work for them. I had my own missions that I was working on to help people. Britt attempted to coerce me into working for him, and whenever I said no and he didn't follow up, I contacted an attorney. That was days later. Moments later, after contacting the attorney, Mr. Jared Sonnenklar, Britt was eager, calling me, missing his call 3-4 times in a 15-minute period after I had spoken to the attorney regarding the lawsuit and the criminal charges. But Britt was so eager to offer me the null pros, stating, "Oh, because you've been through so much already." Yeah. Effectively threatening my son, Britt issued the null pros in bribery. At the time, I wasn't aware of what was happening. It's just really strange, and I was just trying to allow the process to go forward so that I could get the case dropped and not have to deal with it anymore. Britt entered the null prosequi on grounds of the prosecution's evidence would not survive a motion to suppress. And in that, as we've already visited, you can see that he admitted to law enforcement misconduct in that document, thereby admitting that the law enforcement misconduct was evident in the fake criminal case. Case numbers were later revealed by me, experienced multiple fake cases against me, including an illegal removal, aka kidnapping and trafficking by the Department of Children and Families, because that's what it's called. That's what it's called. Okay? Just because they brought their badges in there and they fucking took my kids out of my house for absolutely no reason under the name of the Department of Children and Families doesn't mean that it was lawful. And because it was unlawful, they committed capital felonies, both of which are punishable by death for one act. Do you think they might have a little bit of an incentive to retaliate against me and shut me up? I think so. Tying it all together, the same modus operandi and contemporaneous events indicating multiple people and agencies had taken unlawful force unnecessarily of a similar nature, revealing unlawful force, coercion, and conspiracy to commit crimes for malicious intent and personal gain, punishable by death for one act as a capital felony, aka a federal crime. And I believe that already covers the reason, but we'll go through this slide anyways, why the sovereign immunity clause doesn't apply to my case. It only applies if they're acting in the scope of practice in good faith and not violating any rights. Triple strike on that one. They failed. So the claims and the charges that I'd like to see are the intentional infliction of emotional distress, aka the tort of outrage, involving but not limited to organized crime, pre-militia, trafficking, peonage, attempted murder, aggravated stalking and assault, neglect of fiduciary duty, abuse of authority, deprivation of rights under the color of law, weaponizing the justice system, and public trust violations, just to name a few. Again, I show the domestic terrorism definition. Title 18, Section 2381 states that treason is the act of levying war. This is also a treasonous act because they have defrauded the government and taken illegal action against its citizens. That's domestic terrorism. The main penal code is Title 18, Title 18 of the United States Code. It's the main penal code or punishment code for the United States government. And Title Section 242 covers the deprivation of rights under the color of law, which provision makes it a crime for someone acting under the color of law to willfully deprive a person of a right or privileges protected by the Constitution or laws of that state. Or the United States, rather, laws of the United States. It is not necessary that the offense be motivated by racial bias or by any other animus. This law prohibits anyone from depriving a person of their rights, privileges, or immunities as protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. It also prohibits subjecting someone to different punishments, pains, or penalties based on their race, color, or alien status. The penalties for violating this law include a fine, imprisonment for up to 1 year, both the fine and imprisonment. If bodily injury occurs, imprisonment for up to 10 years or a fine of up to $10,000. If death occurs, imprisonment for any term of years or for life or the death penalty. And examples of this actions that could violate this law include excessive force, sexual assault, false arrest, and fabricating evidence. And I pulled this right off of Google. So thanks, Google, for confirming. Title 18, Section 241 of the Penal Code of the United States Code, conspiracy against citizens' rights, states that it is unlawful for two or more persons to agree to injure, threaten, or intimidate a person in the United States in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured by the Constitution or laws of the United States, or because his or her having exercised such a right. Rights. The rights protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. Acts injuring, threatening, oppressing, or intimidating someone. Punishment, a fine or up to 10 years in prison or both. If death results or if the act includes kidnapping, aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, the punishment can be up to life in prison or even the death penalty. Here are some additional details of the Title 18, Section 241. It's a felony, even if the underlying conduct would not be a felony on its own. It doesn't require an overt act, unlike most conspiracy statutes. It is used in law enforcement misconduct and hate crimes prosecutions. It was previously used in human trafficking prosecutions, all of which applies to what I'm talking about here. The Supreme Court ruled in the United States versus Guest that a conviction under this statute requires proof of the defendant's specific intent to deprive the victim of a constitutional right. Got that. And believe it or not, it is totally fucking admissible because it came from their documentation. Yes, that part. So here is recent news from the Monroe County incidences. So on July 15th, the Monroe County DA special treatment demanded at a traffic stop. There's a video there. On September 24th this year, sheriff's officer charged with 27 felonies and conspiracy to commit crimes and abuse of authority. Access link is here. She abused her authority and her access to of her authority. In April, on the 30th, a statement issued by the Director of Public Integrity states, let's open this one, states that we have received several requests to investigate Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley concerning her actions on Monday, April 21st, 2024, in the town of Webster. As a result, the Office of Public Integrity, OPI, will conduct an investigation in conjunction with the Monroe County Board of Ethics, which I chair. The investigation begins immediately. We will report the result of our thorough investigation and subsequent recommendations to the appropriate authorities and share them with the public via the press release. All OPI investigations and reports are also available on the OPI website. So I'm just realizing that this looks like it might be in New York in Monroe County instead of here in Florida, which is my mistake, but irrelevant because it just shows more of the same is going on. Where did my paper go? Here it is. And of course, visit my website if you'd like to see more information. This is my website, and here I am exposing corruption under the color of law. And this is based on some events and testimonies given by various other people, but people are afraid. And it looks like I am basically the front runner, the forerunner of this whole campaign to stop corruption, to end corruption. My goal is empowerment, exposure, and encouragement. The truth shall set you free. On this website, you'll see various videos. I'm about to upload this one right here under the Pro Se Litigation tab. And then there's another one here, strange events continuously occurring, preventing me from living a normal life. Your story could be next. Come forth and tell me about yours, and I will keep your confidence. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and follow me. Also, join me at facebook.com/groups/join the Jubilee. Here is a carousel of some of these slides that I've put together previously that can tell you a little bit more about the situation. And this right here is clearly not my own doing. Okay. Like he beat me up more than once. This is the document I filed to show that the court was corrupt, completely corrupt, and there was extenuating circumstances and the law had been broken. My rights had been violated. I filed that on October 10th, 2023. My children were illegally removed and kidnapped by the Department of Children and Families on this on the 18th. Yeah, a week later. Dirty Chief Judge. Here's Mr. Britt Slide himself, even a picture of his ugly ass right there. Talking about the emails sent from and to regarding Britt's unlawful abuse of authority whenever he contacted the magistrate and asked her to shut the case down on grounds of sovereign immunity, and which she did, irrespective of the many documents I had filed. Here's one of talking about the accompanied threat on my son with the bribery. Abuse of authority, deprivation of rights, admits misconduct, admits neglect of fiduciary duty, shows he's willing to break the law for personal gain, all under the color of law, acting in his position, throwing his authority and weight around. Just another coincidence. I was arrested here. As it's the same modus operandi as we discussed before, just so happens to be the same modus operandi, and I was never actually charged. So they set up a carjacking, then I was mugged and beaten and robbed, and they found my property on in the possession of the perpetrators, and still they arrested me because they said that they were able to give sworn statements yet to be seen, because I don't see them. I haven't seen them. Nobody will give me anything because apparently I'm listed as the perpetrator and not the victim, as I should have been. So again, another injustice in this case. So they arrested me and took me to jail, very gravely mistreated me. Some people will be getting the death penalty for the treatment that they gave me. They threatened my life on more than one occasion, and they attempted to put me into a mental hospital. Ooh, boy, that comma's gonna hurt like a bitch coming back around. And I've been saying lately, karma's a bitch, so I don't have to be. Here is a message received by a supposed friend, another civilian, a concerned friend who knows about the conspiracy that's going on in Key West, and this was made a long time ago. That's why it said is going on. Um, well, it's probably still going on, but anyways, and not long after he sent this message, I realized that he also knew about what was about to happen to me and my children on the 18th. And in this message, he says, this is exactly what has to be done if you want my assistance. Dump everything, keep nothing that doesn't assist with the move. And time is not on your side. So I wouldn't hesitate for one CT second to get that ass in motion and immediately. Moments, okay, so that they're a little out of sorts, but you see these were at 5:09, 5:10. This is at 5:04, and this one is at just about 4 o'clock. So this is because believe me, I'm already done down here, can only deal with this shit for so much longer. And I'm already working on plan 3, 4, and 5, getting the money and all. And so we all good. You want your kids to be good, then follow my lead and get ready to get the fuck out of here because you're done here. And it's not in your kids' best interest to stay. And that's the only thing that should matter to you. And this was on the 15th of October, 3 days prior to the children and families kidnapping of my children. Another message that he wrote, we're going to go up north near Hollywood where we said originally, what was this say? Where you said originally, so you can build a clientele base for everything, and never even mention the fucking keys ever to anyone. Act like it never fucking existed. Yeah. Another one here, I think that might be a repeat of the other one. Yeah, those are just repeats. I gotta fix that. We got Samuel Adorno is one of the KW Police Department's officers. He best friends with the jailed Marine, and name 2 and 3 that was given to government perp Charles Britt. So he was present at the 719 South Street on 1014 when I called to aid my children and I and report my gun was missing. He voiced his interest of, is it your gun? Is it legal? Don't you have a felony involved in the illegal search and seizure on 8/8/22 whenever it was set up by the Marine who's now in jail. Later, no prost. Those charges were no prost by Britt. Let's see. This one says he liked following and harassing me after work, intending to intimidate me or who the fuck knows what else. Plant something on me, harm me, I don't know. Seen tailing me aggressively in a fake criminal case against me that judge refused, and government perp would only allow me to view secretively on 6/6 in the prosecutor's office. And there's way more. Dirty Judge Mark Wilson arrested in 1989 for trafficking cocaine in Key West, which is Monroe County, where he now sits on the bench as a judge. Wrongful prosecution and fake criminal case. Spoke of conspiracy from the bench in open court in May 2023. Supposedly ruled on the wrongful eviction on October 13th, 2023, but neglected to sign it. And also ignored my motion to change venue and with the statement of corruption filed on 10/10. Also, one of 3 names given to the government perp regarding trafficking ring in mid-2023, and still there's more. Judge Bonnie Helms ignored repeated reports of foul play and being denied court access to no avail. The Department of Children and Families attorneys that statement that the discovery doesn't exist in open court, and I was robbed and beaten and arrested and charged, detained wrongfully and unlawfully after demanding to see her oath of office on May 17th. I have emails and documents and everything for this. This is just an explanation of it so that people can understand what's going on. And I'm happy to show any evidence. As soon as someone with any fucking authority that's planning on doing something about it comes forth and wants to talk about it. That's all I'm waiting on. Oh, by the way, I'm not really waiting very patiently now, am I? Hence the reason I'm making this video. Boo boo be doo. What else? Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. You can look at the carousel. It's all good. If you want to subscribe and you want to get your email involved and keep in touch with me, you can. You can do it various ways here. If you want to book for Justice and Security, you can do that. And there was something else I was going to show you. Oh, if you haven't done so already, please join the Facebook community group at facebook.com/groups/join the Jubilee. Jubilee. And thank you so much for joining me and giving me your attention for this time. I do hope that you will continue to review the evidence and share it with as many people as possible. I would like for everyone to know that you and your children are not safe in your own home. They walked right into my life and destroyed my life and my children's life. And they will do it to you too if we don't come together, because we are stronger together. And they know that we're stronger together. Hence the reason that everything in society today is dividing us. I'll leave you with that thought. Namaste. Namaste.